All right, seniors, welcome back. Now we're gonna start getting to the meat of Macbeth. We've got Macbeth and Lady Macbeth kind of crossing paths here. What is it with Tic Tacs? It's either get 1 or 15. I can't. Two. Two is the ideal number. All right, sorry. I'll leave those up there. So we're getting to the meat. We saw Lady Macbeth and Macbeth kind of hit this crossroads where they were thinking the same thing for a second. And now Macbeth is veering off on this path of bloody behavior, and Lady Macbeth is going to be falling down into the pits of depression. So, Act 4 begins with the witches in a famous scene. This is a double boil and bubble, cauldron, fire burn and cauldron bubble, which has been made famous by, I think Hocus Pocus by Disney uses this. There's more to this scene than that, though, as they're putting in various items into this pot of they're making that's going to allow Macbeth to speak to these ghosts that they serve, and the ingredients escalate. We begin with poisoned entrails, which is the guts of something poisoned, of a frog. It looks like you get a bunch of generic witch stuff, but man, does it not escalate as you get near the end. We get things like there's some of Shakespeare's anti-Semitism right there at the top. Liver of a blaspheming Jew. Actually, doesn't have to be seen as necessarily anti-Semitic, but he's got other things that definitely are. So why not? What one's really bad? Let's see. Finger of a birth strangled babe. A baby strangled in birth. The finger. I mean, it gets. So what is that there for? Well, legend is that some of this was actual stuff witches would have done, but in my opinion, it's to let you see once again that these witches serve something evil. All right? If you've got to throw in fingers of dead babies to summon your masters are bad people. Apologies. I've got my voice going out. It's 6:40 in the morning, and I'm already losing my voice, so thus the mints. I apologize. Okay, at this point, Macbeth shows up, and we get a so famous line. It even became a title for one of Ray Bradbury's collections. I think it was one of his short stories collections. But the line is, "Something wicked this way comes." So the witches who just threw in, awful parts into this little stew pot they're making indicate that Macbeth is wicked, which, wow. That lets you see where Macbeth is right now on this spectrum of good to bad. He's way over here way past the end of bad and into, uncharted territory. And we're going to see that in this scene. So Macbeth's there, and he's like, I want you to tell me, more about this situation. And he commands these women. He's not being polite. He's not giving them an opportunity, he's not treating them with the respect. It's just, you're going to tell me what I want to know. If not, he starts threatening them. So the witches play along. They give him three prophecies. They tell him the first to beware of Mcduff, which, of course, Macbeth already knows Mcduff. There's something with him. Remember the first prophecy they gave him? The first three prophecies. The very first one was that he was going to be Thane of Glamis, which he already was. So usually that first prophecy is the, table setter. All right, we already know that's going to be true. So he knows Mcduff doesn't like him. He knows to beware of Mcduff. The second thing he gets is this. Yeah, the second one is that he can't be harmed by a person of woman born, which this isn't. Science fiction in the way off future. At this time period, everybody was born from a woman. So right away, Macbeth's like, then no one can hurt me. But it's kind of scary. He says, "Then live, Mcduff. What need I fear of thee? But yet I'll make assurance double sure and take a bond of fate. Thou shalt not live." So he's like, well, obviously Mcduff had a mom. I don't need to worry about him. But I'm going to kill him anyway, just in principle. Remember the Macbeth from Act 1 who was loath to, murder people? Now, killing people in battle and killing them in cold blood are different. He was so, just determined not to commit murder, and now he's just like, nah, it's not really a purpose, but I'll do it anyway. Then he gets a third apparition, which is a really weird one. It's that Macbeth won't be defeated until Birnam Wood, which is in one part of the country, comes to Dunsinane, which is the castle he's going to go to in a minute, which an entire force cannot uproot and move. So he's like, I'm good. I'm covered. But it doesn't stop the bloodthirst, and he still wants to know more. And the witch is telling him, you don't want to. You want to stop here. Macbeth presses them, and he gets this weird vision that shows Banquo's this line of kings descending from him that goes on and on and on and on. And it even would, when it was originally put on for King James, would have gone on and on and on until there would have been character after character after character after character, until there was one of them holding a mirror that would hold it up to King James, because King James was the last of that line, at least right then. I mean, obviously, he was, but he was the king right then. So this infuriates Macbeth, and he decides that from now on, he's not thinking, he's just acting. He knows he's so deep in blood, there's nothing he can do. At this point, he's going to do everything he possibly can to hold his power. If it means killing everyone, if it means killing women and children, he just doesn't care. All right. In fact, we go to the next scene. Where we're at Macduff's castle. Macduff has fled to England to try to get Malcolm and the English to send an army to help, put Malcolm on the throne and get Macbeth off of it. We have a really interesting conversation with Lady Macduff and her son and Ross, the three of them. That it's like Lady Macduff and Ross, and then Lady Macduff and her son. But it's kind of this would be known as little comic relief points. I mean, and it's got to be, because something really dark's about to happen. But basically, the son is really interesting in that he points out how stupid it is that that the dishonest allow the honest to kill them, because there's no honest people. So he's pointing out the false nature of how we act like we're going to punish people for stuff when we're all guilty and we're all dirty. At that point, a murderer shows up, and the murderer kills. You don't really see this all happen on stage. I would hope. Usually they don't portray this on stage. But you get like this really awkward death scene with the son who's killed, and the wife is killed. I believe she runs away, but they get her too. Yeah, exit Lady Macduff crying murder. So Macbeth sends murderers to wipe out Macduff's family. They're not doing him any harm, but he wants them gone too. All right. Scene 3 comes in, and this is probably the most ponderous scene in the play, if it's not one of the witches scenes that we typically cut. Scene 3 is basically a conversation between Malcolm and Macduff. Macduff trying to convince Malcolm to come back to England. Malcolm is playing a game trying to see if Macduff is serious, because Macbeth has tried to trick him before, he says. So Malcolm presents himself as this horrible person and that he's worse than Macbeth. And the test here is that if Macduff says, I don't care, we want you, we just want Macbeth gone, then Malcolm knows that Scotland's interests aren't really at the heart of what Mcduff is there for, and he knows not to trust him. So he goes through, and this is a great scene for analyzing what a true king should be like. All right, that's what this scene is for. But eventually, Mcduff comes to the realization that Malcolm's a horrible person, and he's like, not only should you not serve in Scotland, you should die here, and your parents should be ashamed. At that point, Malcolm comes clean and says, look, all that was a lie. I was just testing you. I'm actually not any of those things. And Mcduff is confused, as he would be. But at that point, I believe Mcduff, that's when he gets the news about his family. And he struggles with this. And this is a very touching scene, in my opinion, this part of it. The first part's ponderous. The second part, you really get to see a little bit of Mcduff's heart as he struggles with this. Shakespeare portrays such amazing characters, and the fact that Mcduff is really broken up over this and is really struggling to get it together. And he's got Malcolm telling him, "Hey, look, use that rage let's skip Macbeth." But Malcolm's struggling. Not Malcolm. Mcduff is struggling because he's lost his whole family for the sake of his country, trying to get an army to defeat Macbeth. So he's really had to sacrifice. But as this section closes, and really, guys, that's it. That's the whole act. Fourth act is pretty short. As it closes, we have, there's about to be a war. We are going to have the British or the English armies with Malcolm and Mcduff coming to attack Macbeth and the Scottish people. Now, Macbeth's not going to have the best army, obviously, because they're going to turn tail. Nobody likes Macbeth. That's one of the things we're learning through some of this scene as well as some of the previous ones, that Macbeth's a horrible king. No one really likes him. They're only serving him out of fear. And really, once they see there's an avenue to get rid of him, they're going to turn tail and try to help get rid of him. But as long as it looks like he's not going anywhere, they're all trying their best to be on his good side. The way tyrants work. They rule through fear. And as long as the fear holds, then you can keep people on your side. But the moment there's a little bit of a crack and you see people starting to chip away at it and you see a light at the end of the tunnel, the quicker it is that they come down. So that gets us through Act 4. Look at that. 10 minutes, man. I would say that's an all-time great. Don't forget to watch and read, okay? Don't just use this as your whole summary, because I did really shrink this down. But, I mean, I hit the main points so that you know what was going on. All right? Okay, so Act 5 we're going to do tomorrow. That's going to be the ending of this. And Act 5 is where you usually get your, your real, I mean, this is where everything's going to be tied up. And, we're going to see what happens with Macbeth. Who else is going to end up dying before then? All sorts of good stuff. And some of the greatest lines in Shakespeare actually are going to show up in Act 5. They're not my favorite. They're my second favorite. But they're coming up. And I'm really pumped that you'll get to see them and I'll get to talk about them. So, all right. Well, we'll see you again tomorrow for Act 5.